My name is Lauren Price, and I'm 32 years old. If you'd seen me a year ago, you probably would have decided I was one of those women who had her life neatly under control. I was the one in the navy scrub pants and clogs, hair twisted into a no-nonsense bun, badge clipped to my pocket as I walked into a cardiac OR before sunrise. I'm a cardiac surgeon. I spend my days literally holding people's hearts in my hands. Being a cardiac surgeon means I live in that thin space between life and death on purpose, bypass grafts, valve replacements, transplants. One wrong move, one misjudged suture, and someone doesn't wake up. You learn to compartmentalize. You learn to put your feelings in a box, set them on a shelf, and move your hands anyway. My attending in residency once told me I had ice in my veins. He meant it as a compliment. When someone's chest is open and everything is going sideways, you don't want the surgeon who cries. You want the surgeon whose heart rate barely flinches. That emotional control served me well in the OR, saved a lot of lives, got me promoted fast, gave me a reputation as the calm one, the steady one, the woman who doesn't crack. Funny thing is, I thought that control would protect me outside the hospital too. Spoiler, it didn't. I met Ethan Monroe 3 years ago at a hospital fundraiser. One of those black tie events where rich people drink champagne, write checks, and congratulate themselves for supporting healthcare while the actual ICU nurses work a double. I hate those things. The fake smiles, the networking, the way people talk more about donor walls than actual patients. But when you're on the fast track in a surgical department, you show up, you smile, you shake hands. I was at the refreshments table, mentally timing how long I had to stay before I could escape, when a man in a perfectly tailored tux stopped next to me. "You look like you're calculating the fastest escape route," he said. I glanced at him. Dark hair, easy grin, the kind of effortless confidence you only see on people who have never worried about overdraft fees. "That obvious?" He shrugged, picking up a drink. "You've checked your watch 3 times in 5 minutes, and you haven't made small talk with anyone who doesn't have a stethoscope. I'm Ethan, by the way." "Lauren," I said, "cardiac surgery." "Ah," he said, like that meant something in his world. "I'm real estate, I guess. My family owns some buildings downtown." Some buildings turned out to mean his father's company owned what felt like half the city's office space. Old money. Legacy wealth. The kind of last name that opens doors without anyone asking for a resume. We talked for an hour. He made fun of the rubber chicken dinners. I made fun of the donor slideshow. He asked real questions about the OR, the pressure, what it's like to literally hold someone's life between your fingers. Most people either get squeamish or weirdly fascinated. Ethan just listened, like it all made sense. "Doesn't it get to you?" he asked at one point. "Knowing if you mess up, someone dies?" "It would get to me more if I didn't show up," I said. "At least this way they have a chance." He laughed softly. "Ice in your veins." I smirked. "Warm enough for a fundraiser, apparently." He asked for my number before his mother could drag him away to go charm another table. I gave it to him. I told myself it was casual, that I was just being polite. I knew better, I just didn't care. We started dating. Slowly at first. Then, with the kind of speed that feels inevitable when your schedules actually line up. Ethan seemed to get my life in a way most people didn't. He didn't pout when I canceled dinner for an emergency surgery. He came by with takeout at 10 p.m., when I finished a 12-hour case and fell asleep sitting up on the couch. "You're the only person I know who works more than my dad," he said once, brushing hair out of my face. "At least you're actually saving people instead of just collecting rent." On paper, it was perfect. I had the demanding, meaningful career. He had the flexible, well-paid job in the family business. He understood my schedule. I liked his laugh. My parents liked that he was polite and didn't flinch at the idea of my salary matching his. His parents were another story. I met them 6 months in. We went to some expensive restaurant with a tiny menu and a wine list thicker than my anatomy textbooks. "Lauren, dear," his mother said, air-kissing my cheek, "we've heard so much about you." "I hope only the good parts," I said. She smiled in that way rich women smile when they're cataloging your earrings and shoes and deciding exactly where you fit on their internal hierarchy. Of course. His father spent the entire dinner asking about my financial prospects and family background, like we were at a merger meeting. "So, cardiac surgery." He swirled his wine. "That's a long residency, isn't it? How much debt did you rack up for that?" "Enough," I said, "but I've been paying it down aggressively. I'm in a good place now." "And your parents?" he asked. "What do they do?" "My dad's a machinist. My mom's a school secretary." He made a thoughtful noise, which translated to, "Not our level." His mother was more direct in her own way. Ethan has always dated women from, she searched for a word, similar circles, but he insists you're very driven. Driven, not educated, not accomplished, just driven, like I was a particularly eager intern. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table. Mom, Lauren literally saves lives. I think she'll be okay. His mother laughed thinly. Of course, darling. We just want to make sure you're compatible. Later in the car, Ethan apologized. They're stuck in their ways, he said. They'll come around. I remember looking out the window at the passing streetlights and thinking, I don't need them to come around. I just need you to be on my side. 2 years in, he proposed. We were in my tiny kitchen, not at some grand rooftop restaurant. I'd just come off a double shift. I still smelled faintly like antiseptic and coffee. He got down on one knee between the fridge and the sink with a ring I recognized immediately. I recognized it because I bought it. Or more accurately, I'd been carefully saving so I could afford something that felt right. A ring that said, you matter enough for me to plan for you, even with my student loans and my insane schedule. Ethan had insisted on contributing. Then a surprise business expense had come up, and suddenly his part vanished. I paid anyway, because I loved him, because I thought this was what grown-up compromise looked like. Lauren Price, he said, holding up the ring, you are the most incredible woman I've ever met. You literally keep people alive for a living. You make me want to be better. Will you marry me and let me annoy you for the rest of our lives? I laughed, because it was easier than crying. Yes, I said. Of course I will. I slid the ring onto my own finger. It glinted under the awful fluorescent kitchen light, and for a second, everything felt simple. Like the hours, the blood, the stress, the constant beeping monitors were finally balanced by something soft and solid and mine. The problem started about 6 months before the wedding. Ethan decided he wanted to explore his artistic side. Translation: he went to a karaoke bar with friends, butchered a pop song, and a group of drunk strangers told him he sounded just like the original. People say that like it's a compliment, not a warning. He came home that night glowing. Babe, I think I actually have something, he said, dropping onto the couch. Like real talent. Everyone was freaking out. I was reviewing labs on my tablet. I glanced up. At karaoke? He rolled his eyes. You didn't hear me. You don't know. I felt alive up there. I want to see where this can go. There's a specific kind of tired that settles into your bones when you've been on your feet in the OR for 10 hours. I was that tired. So instead of saying what I wanted to say, karaoke is not the Met, I took a breath and said, okay, what does that mean? It means, he said, I want voice lessons, real ones. That was the first hairline crack in the life I thought I'd built. At the time, I told myself it was nothing, just a harmless hobby, something to make him happy while I kept grinding through 60-hour weeks and wedding spreadsheets. I didn't know yet that those lessons would end my engagement. I didn't know they'd show me exactly what kind of man I was about to marry. I just knew I was tired, in love, and about to start bankrolling a dream that wasn't mine. The voice coach idea came from Marcus. Marcus and I met years ago through a mutual friend in the hospital cafeteria. He worked in sound engineering back then, doing live setups for events and studio work on the side. He was one of those people who could talk about microphones and compressors for an hour and somehow make it sound interesting. We stayed friends, grabbed drinks when our schedules aligned. He'd ask about my surgeries. I'd listen to his stories about diva singers and temperamental equipment. Later, he started dating Sabrina Cole. Sabrina was the kind of woman who looked like she'd walked out of a music video. Dark curls, red lipstick, clothes that somehow managed to be casual and expensive at the same time. She'd done local tours, studio sessions, vocal coaching. The real thing, at least compared to the drunk guy at karaoke shouting "Freebird" into a broken mic. When Ethan decided he was the next big thing, Marcus was the first person I thought of. If you're serious, I told Ethan one night over takeout, Marcus might know someone legit. Real training, not just YouTube tutorials. Ethan's eyes lit up. See? You believe in me. Believing in him wasn't the problem. Believing he'd stay grounded while the world fed his ego. That was the part I should have worried about. I texted Marcus. Within a day, he replied, "You're in luck. Sabrina's taking on a few new students. She's brutal but good." We met them at a coffee shop downtown. Sabrina arrived 5 minutes late, sunglasses on, iced coffee in hand, Marcus trailing behind her, carrying her bag, like it weighed nothing. "Lauren," she said, pulling off her sunglasses and giving me a quick hug. Her voice was warm, rich, the kind of voice that makes people turn their heads, even when she's just saying hello. And you must be Ethan. Ethan stood up a little too fast. Yeah, hi. I've heard a lot about you. Only good things, I hope. She smiled, sliding into the booth across from us. Marcus settled beside her, arm around the back of her chair, looking comfortable and proud. We talked logistics. Sabrina asked Ethan to sing a few lines from something he liked, right there, in the middle of the cafe. He hesitated, then launched into some pop ballad he'd done at karaoke. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great. It was okay. But Sabrina nodded along with a serious expression, tapping the table with her nails like she was keeping time. You've got something, she said when he finished. Ethan's shoulders relaxed. Really? Yeah, she shrugged. Raw, untrained, and you're pushing too hard on the high notes, but there's potential. It's not just in your head. Ethan shot me a quick, I told you so look, like this was a clinical diagnosis and I'd just been proven wrong. What are your rates? I asked. 200 a session, she said smoothly. 60 minutes one-on-one. Technique, breath support, repertoire, performance skills. I don't do half attention. If I take you on, it's serious work. $200 for an hour. I could practically see my student loans sigh in the background. But Ethan didn't flinch. That's fine, he said, too quickly, before I could open my mouth. Twice a week? Sabrina nodded. Tuesdays and Thursdays at my studio, we can reassess after a few months. I did the math in my head. 400 a week, 1,600 a month, nearly 20 grand a year. For potential. Ethan looked so hopeful, though. Like someone had just handed him a spotlight and told him it was his. I heard my own voice say, we can make that work. Because that's what you do when you think you're building a future with someone. You invest in their dreams, even when they sound wildly impractical compared to your early morning rounds and call schedules. The first few weeks, it really did seem harmless. Ethan would come home from lessons buzzing with terminology that sounded almost surgical in its precision. Breath support, resonance, placement, vocal fry. He'd pace the apartment, demonstrating scales, laughing at himself when his voice cracked. Sabrina says I'm improving fast, he'd tell me, dropping onto the couch. She says if I stay focused, I could actually do something with this. Like what? I asked once, half teasing, half curious. Sold-out arenas? Reality show judge? The Ethan tour? He grinned. Why not? You're allowed to be ambitious about saving lives. I'm allowed to be ambitious about making art. Fair point, in theory. Sabrina and Marcus quickly became fixtures in our social life. The four of us would meet for drinks after lessons sometimes. Sabrina would talk about her nightmare clients. Marcus would roll his eyes fondly. Ethan would retell every compliment she'd given him like it was gospel. He has a great ear, Sabrina would say, touching Ethan's arm lightly. Most beginners don't hear their own pitch issues. He does. That's rare. Marcus didn't seem bothered. He'd lean back, hand resting on the back of her chair, expression easy. He trusted her, or thought he did. I told myself not to read into it. I was trained to analyze heart rhythms, not body language. Besides, I liked Sabrina. She was sharp, funny, direct. She called Ethan out when he got lazy with practice. She teased me about my OR stories, but in a way that felt more impressed than dismissive. You're out here sewing hearts back together, she said once, raising her glass to me. The least we can do is try not to sound terrible while we drink. If there were signs in those early months, they were subtle. A late lesson here, an extra hour of practice there. A text from Ethan. Running behind, Sabrina thinks we're close to cracking this song. The occasional inside joke between them I didn't quite catch. Wedding planning took up whatever mental bandwidth I had left. Ethan's mother had a binder. Of course she did. Venues, catering, floral arrangements, seating charts, everything color-coded and terrifying. She pushed for the country club. She pushed for a 6-tier cake, a live band, a guest list that seemed to include every name in Ethan's father's contact list. At least your parents won't have to pay for much, she said once, looking at me over her planner. We'll handle the important details. My parents offered to cover some costs anyway. They did it quietly, with apologetic smiles, like they were embarrassed their sum was a fraction of what Ethan's family tossed at centerpieces. I took extra shifts to cover everything else. Dress, photographer, random expenses that showed up with the inevitability of post-op fevers. Meanwhile, Ethan's schedule became elastic. He'd leave for lessons and come home later than he should have, flushed and energized. How long was practice? I asked once, glancing at the clock. I thought you were home by 9. We ran over, he said breezily, dropping his bag on the counter. We were in a groove. Sabrina says my upper range is really coming in. He kissed my cheek, already moving toward the shower. Don't wait up next time. You know how artists are. Artists. He said it like he'd been one his whole life. I started noticing little things. The way Sabrina's name popped up on his phone more often. Not just around lesson times. The way he'd grin down at the screen, thumb flying, and tilt the phone slightly away when he realized I was looking. The way he'd talk about her. Sabrina just gets it, you know? He said one night while we were stuffing envelopes. Like, she understands what I'm trying to do. She pushes, but in a good way. Marcus seems proud of her, I said. He told me she basically built her studio from nothing. Yeah, she's amazing, Ethan said. We just click. The words hung in the air a little too long. I felt something cold slide under my ribs, slow and deliberate. Not a full alarm, just a distant beeping, like a monitor in another room. I shut it off, metaphorically. I was exhausted. I was planning a wedding. I had a 12-year-old patient on the transplant list whose labs I checked compulsively. I didn't have time to be jealous over a woman my friend was dating. If I had doubts, I folded them neatly and tucked them into the same box, where I kept the images of every surgery that didn't go the way I wanted. 6 months before the wedding, Ethan moved into full artistic mode. He started calling his lessons rehearsals. He introduced himself to new people as working in real estate, but focusing on my music. He talked about maybe cutting back on his hours at the family firm to give this a real shot. Maybe after the wedding, he said one night in bed, staring at the ceiling, we could move somewhere cheaper. I could really dive into music. You could pick up shifts anywhere. Like a traveling surgeon? I asked dryly. He laughed, rolled toward me, kissed my shoulder. You know what I mean. You're so good at what you do. You'd land on your feet. I don't want to wake up at 50 and wonder what would have happened if I'd tried. I understood that. The fear of wasted potential. The haunting question of what if. I also understood that one of us already worked 60 hours a week with people's lives on the line. And it wasn't the guy dreaming about open mics and studio sessions. But I didn't say that. Instead, I said, let's get through the wedding first. The wedding. He smiled, eyes closing. It's going to be perfect. He was wrong. It was never going to be perfect. Because while I was scrubbing in and signing consent forms and listening to Ethan's mother monologue about napkin colors, something else was happening in quiet studios and after extra rehearsals. The week of the wedding, Ethan barely spoke to me. He stayed at Marcus and Sabrina's place most of the time. It's easier to rehearse there, he said. And tradition. You're not supposed to see the bride before the wedding. Tradition. The same tradition he'd ignored when he moved into my apartment after 6 months of dating. By Thursday, the night of the rehearsal dinner at the country club, I hadn't had a real conversation with my fiancé in days. I told myself it was stress. I told myself once the vows were said, once the legal documents were signed, once the honeymoon flight took off, we'd breathe. We'd laugh about how crazy it had all been. What I didn't know, what I couldn't even imagine yet, was that by midnight, there would be no wedding. Just a locked door, a splintered frame, and the sound of my carefully controlled life cracking open. The rehearsal dinner was at Ethan's parents' country club, because of course it was. When I walked in, the chandeliers were already glowing, the string quartet was already playing some tasteful, overpriced background music, and 200 guests were milling around for an event traditionally attended by maybe 30 people. Ethan's mother didn't do modest, not for anything that involved showing off her son. My parents arrived 20 minutes early, dressed in the nicest clothes they owned. My mom fiddled with her bracelet, looking around at the marble floors and gilded trim, like she wasn't sure whether she was supposed to breathe on anything. My dad kept adjusting his tie, muttering, "You'd think with all this money they could afford some damn chairs that don't look like museum pieces." I squeezed their hands. It's just one night. My mom smiled up at me. "We're proud of you, honey. That's what matters." It did matter, more than I said. But as the evening unfolded, that warmth was overshadowed by Ethan's parents floating through the venue like royalty, greeting their loyal subjects. During dinner, Ethan's father stood to give a speech. He talked about the Monroe legacy. He talked about the incredible young man Ethan has become. He talked about the bright future ahead. Then he added, as an aside, literally an aside, and of course, we welcome Lauren into the family. The entire room clapped politely. My parents clapped too, though my dad shot me a look that said, "We don't need their approval." I tried to smile back. But Ethan? He didn't seem to notice anything. He was distracted, glancing toward the hallway every few minutes. After dessert, he disappeared completely. I checked the patio, the ballroom, the bar. Nothing. I found Marcus talking to a few groomsmen near the wine station and tugged his sleeve. "Where's Ethan?" Marcus frowned. "I thought he was with you." "No, I haven't seen him in 20 minutes. That hollow, cold feeling returned, like the moment before a code blue when the monitors start screaming. I scanned the room again. My gaze caught on Sabrina, who looked rattled. She kept checking her phone, eyes darting toward the stairs. "Where's Ethan?" I asked when I reached her. Sabrina swallowed hard. He said he needed to take a call. Went upstairs. Private room." "Who called him?" I didn't ask. But her voice wavered. Her eyes, those beautiful, composed, singer's eyes, wouldn't meet mine. Something snapped into place inside me. A quiet, surgical kind of certainty. The same feeling I get before an operation goes wrong and I know I'll have to fix something no one else sees yet. I headed for the staircase. "Lauren, wait!" Sabrina called behind me, but she didn't follow. The upper hallway was silent. Country clubs always have that eerie, over-conditioned stillness. Carpet too soft, lights too warm, air smelling faintly of expensive polish and no real life. I moved quietly, listening. At the end of the hall, behind a heavy door with a brass plate, I heard something. Not voices. Sounds. Low, rhythmic, breathless. A rustle. A thump. The unmistakable cadence of two bodies moving. Every rational thought in my head shut off. I reached for the handle. Locked. I didn't hesitate. I kicked the door once, hard, just above the latch. The frame splintered instantly. Wealthy places spend money on polish, not security. The door swung open with a crack. Time didn't slow, it simply stopped. Ethan was on the couch. Sabrina was under him. Her hair was messy, lipstick smeared. Ethan's shirt was unbuttoned. Her dress was hiked up around her hips. His pants weren't even fully off, just enough. They froze when they saw me. For one still perfect second, none of us moved. Then, "Lauren, wait," Ethan started, scrambling upright. I didn't even hear the words. I stepped inside, letting the broken frame grind under my heel. "How long?" My voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. It was dead calm. "Lauren," Sabrina whispered, trying to pull her dress down. "It's not—" "How long?" Ethan lifted his hands like he was talking a patient out of a panic attack. This isn't... How long?" His lips parted. His eyes flicked toward the hallway behind me like he wished he could rewind time. 4 months, he said. 4 months. 4 months of lessons. 4 months of rehearsal. 4 months of the man I was about to marry touching someone else while I paid for his sessions. I laughed. I didn't mean to. It just escaped. Short, sharp, disbelieving. Ethan flinched. Sabrina looked like she wanted to vanish. I stepped forward. Ethan reached out to stop me, babbling something, but I brushed past him as if he were a curtain in my way. He grabbed my arm. Reflex. I broke his grip, shoved him back with one hand. He stumbled. Sabrina rose too quickly, reaching for him. Her foot slipped on the carpet. Ethan's elbow flew out wildly to steady himself and smashed straight into her face. The crack echoed. She dropped instantly. Blood spurted between her fingers as she clutched her mouth. "My tooth! Oh my God, my tooth!" she screamed. I stared down at the carpet. There it was. An actual tooth. "You knocked out her lateral incisor," I murmured clinically. "Clean break. Implant'll cost her $5,000. Ethan stood there frozen, hands hovering uselessly over Sabrina's shaking form. Then footsteps thundered up the stairs. The door burst open behind me. Marcus. Ethan's parents. Bridesmaids. Groomsmen. Random guests. My cousin. A crowd filled the small room. Everyone saw everything. Ethan half-dressed. Sabrina on the floor bleeding. Me standing untouched while the door hung broken behind me. Ethan spoke first. She came on to me," he blurted, pointing at Sabrina. "She's been throwing herself at me for months. I didn't. She started it." Sabrina's bleeding fingers dropped from her mouth. Her eyes went wide with betrayal. "Are you kidding me?" she choked. "You're the one who said you were unhappy. You're the one who kissed me the first time. You're the one who said you loved me." "That is not what happened," Ethan screamed. Marcus stepped forward, voice shaking. "Sabrina, tell me you didn't." Sabrina sobbed harder. "Marcus, I'm sorry." Ethan's mother gasped like someone had stabbed her. "What is going on, Ethan?" The room erupted into chaos. Voices overlapping, people recording, accusations flying. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I simply pointed to the couch, to the disheveled clothes, to Sabrina's bleeding mouth, to Ethan's undone pants. Then I said with almost surgical clarity, "There is no wedding tomorrow." The room went silent. Ethan stared at me. pale, shaking. Lauren, please, just listen. This was a mistake. Just physical. Please. Pack your things, I said, and get out of my apartment. His father blustered. Lauren, let's be reasonable. I turned my head slowly toward him. Your son made his choice. I'm making mine. Then I walked out, past the guests, past the whispers, past Sabrina sobbing on the carpet, past Ethan calling my name with a voice cracking like his illusions. I didn't cry. Not yet. A surgeon doesn't cry until the work is done. And I still had one last thing to do. Burn the remains of the life I thought I was about to start. I don't remember the drive home. I know I got in my car. I know I turned the key. I know streetlights flickered across the windshield. But my mind was silent, eerily, impossibly silent, like the sterile quiet of an OR after everyone has stepped away from the table. Shock is never loud. It's precise, sharp, a scalpel instead of a scream. When I stepped into my apartment, the one Ethan had lived in rent-free for almost 2 years, something inside me clicked into the same mode I entered during emergencies. The mode where emotion is a luxury, where decisions are clean, where the heart is just another muscle. I walked to the storage closet, pulled out every cardboard box I owned, and started packing his things. Not gently, not angrily, mechanically. His shirts, his ridiculous collection of vintage band tees he bought online for $60 a piece. His designer sneakers, his colognes, his sheet music binder, his stupid silk scarves he used for vocal warm-ups. I filled 12 boxes in under 3 hours, or efficiency translated disturbingly well to eviction. At 2:47 a.m., I dragged each box into the hallway and lined them up like a row of fallen soldiers. Then I called a locksmith. Emergency lock change? The man on the line asked, far too cheerful for the hour. Yes. When he arrived, he didn't ask why. Maybe he saw the boxes. Maybe he saw the exhaustion in my shoulders. Maybe he just understood the universal language of heartbreak. New locks were installed by 3:25 a.m. Worth every penny. My phone buzzed. Ethan. Lauren, please answer. I declined. Another buzz. Declined. Another. Blocked. But he kept going. Voicemails, texts from a second number, then a third. Finally, I answered once, just long enough to end things definitively. What? I said, voice cold enough to frost the air. Lauren, Ethan sobbed. Please, we need to talk. We don't, I said. Your things are in the hallway. You have 24 hours. After that, goodwill. Lauren, please, I'm begging you. We can fix this. It wasn't emotional. It was just physical. Stop talking, I said. You're humiliating yourself. I was lonely. You're always gone. You're always working. Sabrina she understood me. I almost laughed at the tragic irony. You cheated for 4 months, I said. Don't pretend this happened because I worked to support us. You don't care about me, he shouted. Your job is all you care about. And Sabrina cared more? I asked softly. Is that your logic? Silence. Then, what about the wedding? What about everything we planned? There is no wedding. There is no we. There's just you, your vocal coach, and the consequences you earned. Lauren, please, I love you. I hung up, blocked every number he used. For the next 24 hours, I slept. Deep, dreamless sleep, the kind your body forces when it's done tolerating distress. At 11 p.m. the following night, someone pounded on my door so hard it rattled the frame. I took one breath, centered myself, and looked through the peephole. Ethan, disheveled, eyes bloodshot, wearing the same clothes as the night before, but now wrinkled, dirty, and stained. A bruised swelling sat under his cheekbone, probably from when he panicked and elbowed Sabrina. And his mouth, light pink gauze taped over a split lip, a swollen upper gum. Good. I opened the door, but only halfway. He took off his sunglasses dramatically, as if this were a telenovela, and glared at me. I'm here for my things, he said, except thanks to the swelling it came out garbled. I'm here for my things. I stared. He clenched his jaw. Don't laugh at me. I didn't laugh, not outwardly, but something sharp inside me softened, not with sympathy, but clarity. You don't know a person until you see what they look like when reality hits them back. Your boxes are in the hallway, I said simply. Take them and leave. He tried to push past me. I need to check the apartment to make sure you didn't take anything. No, I said. You don't live here. You can't stop me, he snapped. I lived here for 2 years. Rent-free, I said. Now you're trespassing. His nostrils flared. God, you are so controlling. You always were. This is exactly why things went wrong. Things went wrong, I said slowly, because you slept with your vocal coach. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I need help carrying the boxes, he muttered. Call Sabrina, I said. Maybe she can carry them with her remaining teeth. His face flushed bright red. That's not funny. She needs thousands of dollars in dental work. I told you last night. Lateral incisor, clean break, implant is pricey. You don't have to sound so smug about it. I'm not smug, I said calmly. I'm simply accurate. His breathing hitched, then his eyes narrowed. Give me the ring, he said. There it was, the reason he'd really come. No, I said. It's my ring. You gave it to me. Engagement rings are conditional gifts, I replied. Condition being marriage. No marriage, no ring. He gaped at me. That's just heartless. It's contract law. I don't care about contract law. That ring cost a fortune. It cost me a fortune, I corrected. And I'm keeping it as compensation for the $6,400 I spent on your voice lessons, aka your adultery fund. He went rigid, fury trembling through him. You're the most spiteful, vindictive, cold woman I've ever known. And yet, I said, stepping back, you plan to marry me. That broke him. He let out a strangled, guttural sound, then reached into his pocket and pulled out the ring. You want it? He snapped, voice rising. Fine, take it! He hurled it. Not at me, not at the floor, but past me, through the open window behind me. We both heard the faint plink of metal hitting something far below. Ethan froze. Oops, he whispered. I smiled, a slow, surgical smile. Go get it. He blinked. What? You threw it, I said. Go find it. He sputtered. It's dark. I can't. That sounds like a you problem. I'm not going down there alone. Then leave without the ring. It could be anywhere. I'll wait here, I said. Start looking. Still stunned, still furious, he stomped downstairs. Through the window, I watched him wander back and forth across the courtyard, phone flashlight sweeping over rocks, bushes, and pavement. 5 minutes. 10. 15. He got on his hands and knees. 20 minutes. Lauren, he shouted up at the window. It's not here. Keep looking, I called back. 30 minutes passed before he held something up triumphantly. I found it! He returned, sweaty, dirty, humiliated, leaves stuck to his jacket, breathing hard. He shoved the ring at me with shaking hands. Take it, he rasped bitterly. Take your precious ring. I took it, inspected it, pocketed it. Great, I said. Now take your boxes and leave. His face twisted. That's it? He spat. After everything we had, that's all you're going to say? What else is there? I asked. You cheated. I ended it. Simple. His voice rose to a hysterical pitch. You're going to regret this. Sabrina made me feel wanted. She was better than you. Better in every way. I let him finish. Then, are you done? You're done, I said. Good night. One by one, he dragged each box down the stairs, while yelling every insult he could invent between wheezing breaths. His voice cracked. His energy faltered. But he kept going, because anger is heavy, pride is heavier, and consequences are heaviest of all. On his final trip, he turned back, eyes wild. I already feel great, I said, and closed the door. He screamed once more, a pathetic, strangled sound. Then the stairwell door slammed. Silence. I locked the door, sat on my couch, listened to the peace I hadn't felt in months. It didn't last, because the next morning my cousin texted, Lauren, Ethan's posting on Instagram that you abused him. Says you ruined the wedding. People are asking questions. I leaned back against the couch. Of course he was. People like Ethan break things, hearts, promises, boundaries, and then rewrite the story so they don't look like the villain. But I didn't feel angry. I felt ready, because his meltdown at the country club had been witnessed by dozens of people, and his next meltdown would be witnessed by even more. For 3 days, Ethan went silent. Not a text, not a voicemail, not a pathetic midnight knock, just nothing. I knew that silence. It was the silence of someone licking their wounds, rewriting events in their own mind, and preparing to return with a new narrative, one that positioned me as the villain and him as the tragic, misunderstood artist. A predictable cycle. I didn't respond, didn't check his social media, didn't care. If he wanted to scream into the void about being a victim, let him. Real life had already exposed him in a way no social media caption could undo. 3 weeks of quiet passed. I picked up extra shifts. I went running before rounds. I took my first full day off since the breakup and actually rested. Life felt normal, not healed, not whole, but stable, like scar tissue forming after a wound. Then Marcus texted, Hey, you free tonight? The guys want to grab wings at Murphy's. No pressure. I was free. More importantly, I didn't want to be alone with my thoughts. I went. Murphy's was familiar. Dim lighting, Irish flags, wood booths, the faint smell of fried food and spilled beer. Danny and Kai were already at our usual table. Marcus joined a few minutes later, nodding at me with that careful, searching expression people use when they're checking if you're breakable. "I'm okay," I said before he could ask. He exhaled in relief. "Good, because Kai ordered the hot wings and those things could kill a man." We laughed. We joked. For the first time in weeks, I felt like myself. Not a betrayed woman, not a surgeon running on autopilot, just Lauren. But then Danny's eyes went wide. He froze mid-sip. "Lauren, whatever you do, don't turn around." I turned immediately. Ethan, sitting alone in a booth across the room, facing our table, a half-drunk soda in front of him, just staring, like he'd been waiting. "Dude," Kai muttered, "has he been here the whole time?" "Since before we arrived," Danny whispered. "He walked in right after us. I didn't want to freak you out." Too late, but not in the way they thought. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't even anxious. I just felt tired. Ethan stood, straightened his shirt, ran a hand through his hair like he was prepping for a movie scene. Then he walked toward us. Marcus stiffened. Kai rolled his shoulders. Danny muttered, "This guy has lost it." Ethan stopped at our table. "Lauren," he said softly, "can we talk?" "No," I said, "we cannot." His eyes went watery. "Please, 5 minutes." "No, but I made a mistake." "You made many," I said, "and you made them repeatedly." "I never loved Sabrina," he blurted. "She meant nothing." "Nothing! You're the one I love." "That line might work on someone who hasn't seen you half-naked in a locked room with another woman," I said dryly. A man at the bar snorted. Ethan turned red. "Lauren," he pleaded, voice cracking, "I'm better now. I swear I haven't even talked to her. I'm doing therapy. I'm journaling. I'm working on myself. I just need one more chance." I raised an eyebrow. "This entire speech is about you. Not once have you acknowledged what you did to me." He blinked rapidly, as if the thought had never occurred. Marcus finally stepped in. "You heard her, Ethan. Time to go." But Ethan didn't move. He looked wild now, desperate, the kind of desperation that leads to spectacularly bad decisions. "Fine," he said suddenly, straightening. "If you won't listen privately." He turned, walked toward the small stage in the corner, Murphy's open mic setup. "Oh no. Oh no," Danny repeated aloud. "Oh no, no, no." Kai buried his face in his hands. "This is going to be brutal." The host had just finished introducing a guy with a guitar when Ethan climbed onto the stage uninvited. He grabbed the microphone. "Excuse me," he said, voice trembling through the speakers. "I just need a minute." The entire bar turned. Ethan looked directly at me. "This is for Lauren," he announced. "For the woman I love. For the woman I betrayed. For the woman I will win back." I closed my eyes. He scrolled through the karaoke machine with shaky fingers, picked a slow ballad, something dramatic. The music started, soft piano, rising strings. Then he opened his mouth. And, for the sake of honesty, let me say this. Ethan was not just bad, he was catastrophic. Tone deaf, off-key, shaky vibrato, emotionally overwrought but vocally confused. He sounded like a goat learning to yodel. People in the bar froze, stared, then exchanged horrified, sympathetic, or amused expressions. By the second verse, someone near the dartboard started laughing. By the chorus, a table of college students pulled out their phones and began recording. By the bridge, a guy yelled, "Bro, please stop, have mercy." Ethan faltered, but kept going, belting the high notes with the confidence of someone who had once been praised by a drunk crowd at karaoke and never forgot it. Then someone booed, then another. Then the entire bar joined in. "Get off the stage! You're killing us, man!" "This ain't the voice." Ethan's eyes widened in panic. Finally, the bar manager emerged from the back. "That's enough," he called, unplugging the mic. "Show's over, and you're banned, permanently." "What? You can't ban me!" Ethan cried. "We just did," the manager said flatly. "My ears are bleeding. Get down." The crowd cheered. Cheered. Ethan stumbled off the stage, face red, eyes wild, mascara. No, wait, that was just sweat, running down his temples. He grabbed his coat, looked back at me one last time, and choked out, "This isn't over, Lauren. I'll make it right. I'll prove myself. You'll see." Then he fled the bar as everyone applauded his exit. I sat very still. Marcus whispered, "Are you okay?" I nodded slowly. Yes, because something inside me had shifted. Something important. For the first time since the breakup, I felt a strange, unexpected lightness. A release. Not joy, not triumph, not cruelty. Just clarity. Ethan wasn't my responsibility. His choices weren't my burden. His pain wasn't my problem. His downfall wasn't my doing. I didn't ruin his life. He ruined it himself. All I ever did, was stop protecting him from the consequences. Ethan didn't show up again that night. He didn't call, didn't message, didn't send a friend to talk on his behalf. He simply evaporated into the night, leaving behind a trail of stunned silence and secondhand embarrassment that hung over Murphy's like cigar smoke. The bar slowly returned to life. People laughed, clinked glasses, replayed the moment on their phones. Danny showed a video of Ethan's cracked high note to Kai, who nearly fell out of his chair wheezing. But I didn't laugh. Not because I felt sympathy, but because for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt something close to balance. Like part of me had been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there, and now that weight was finally set down. Ethan's downfall hadn't been scripted by me. I hadn't plotted it, hadn't engineered it. He'd done it all on his own. His cheating, his lies, his meltdowns, his self-destruction. Every step was a staircase he built for himself, one collapsing brick at a time. And now I was simply watching him fall from a safe distance. The next morning I woke up feeling lighter, not healed. Healing isn't linear. Grief isn't neat, but lighter. I brewed coffee, opened the windows, fed the stray cat that had started visiting my balcony since Ethan moved out. Then my phone buzzed. It was Marcus. Marcus, you awake? Me. Yeah, what's up? Marcus, I need to show you something. Sending now. A link arrived, a social media post. I braced myself. Dramatic caption? Vague subtweet? A long-winded apology video where Ethan cried on camera until commenters told him he was brave? Nope. It was a video. A shaky clip taken at Murphy's, filmed by one of the college kids. The title was, Worst Love Song Ever. Man Confesses on Open Mic and Gets Banned, LMAO. It already had 12,000 views. Within an hour, 40,000. By noon, over 150,000. Comments poured in. What did we do to anger the gods? She better not take him back after this. My ears filed for divorce. He definitely cheated. No man sings this aggressively unless he cheated. I choked on my coffee. Marcus texted again. Marcus, he's going viral. Me. Of course he is. Marcus, are you okay? I looked around my quiet apartment. The sunlight on the floor, my scalp still damp from a peaceful shower, the faint smell of fresh coffee. My scrubs folded on the chair for tomorrow's shift. I exhaled. Me. Yeah, I'm okay. Late that afternoon, while I was sorting laundry, there was a knock on my door. Not pounding, not frantic, just a soft, hesitant knock. I checked the peephole. Sabrina. Eyes bruised, upper lip stitched, a healing cut along her cheekbone where Ethan's wild elbow had connected. She looked shaken, but steady. I opened the door a few inches. Sabrina? Hi. Her voice was thin. She shifted, wincing slightly. Can we talk? I hesitated. But she wasn't crying, begging, or making excuses. She just looked human. I stepped aside. She entered slowly, hugging her coat tighter around herself. I didn't come to fight, she said softly. I came to apologize. I stayed quiet. She swallowed. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need to say this. She met my eyes. And for the first time since I'd witnessed her on that couch, I saw the truth. Not seduction, not arrogance, not malice. Just a woman who'd fallen into a disaster she helped create. And finally understood the cost. Ethan lied to me, she said. About you. About your relationship. He told me you didn't care about him. That he felt unseen, that you were cold, that he wanted to leave after the wedding but didn't know how. I let that sit between us without responding. Sabrina's voice trembled. I believed him. I shouldn't have. I knew better. But he's charming. He makes you feel like you're the only person who gets him, until the second you don't. She looked down at her bandaged fingers. He told Marcus that I came on to him, her voice cracked. And Marcus believed him, for a moment. That moment hurt more than the tooth. I exhaled. Did Marcus leave you? No, she whispered. But he almost did, and that almost is going to take a long time to repair. Silence. Then she said the one thing I didn't expect. You didn't deserve any of it, Lauren. You're a good person, a strong one. I'm sorry I helped hurt you. I nodded slowly. Not acceptance, not absolution, but acknowledgement. Thank you for saying that. She nodded once, eyes glassy. I should go, she murmured. At the door, she paused. Ethan's spiraling, she said quietly. I'm not warning you. I just know how these things go. He's going to keep trying to pull you into his chaos. I sighed. I know. You're stronger than he is, she whispered. Just remember that. Then she left. That night, I went to bed early. No text from Ethan, no new posts, no fresh drama. The universe was silent again. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of my apartment building. For months, I'd been bracing for impact, waiting for betrayal, enduring humiliation, carrying the emotional wreckage of someone else's choices. Now, I finally understood something. Strength isn't about holding everything together. Sometimes it's about letting the wrong things fall apart. Ethan broke my heart, but he didn't break me. I walked away. I chose myself, and I didn't look back. That was the real ending. Not the confrontation, not the humiliation, not the viral karaoke video, but this, me, in my bed, at peace, breathing freely for the first time in months. And if Ethan ever tries to return, he'll find my door locked, my heart closed, and my life continuing beautifully without him. Because revenge wasn't the point. Clarity was. And clarity is the quietest, strongest victory there is.